All right, let's go across the room. Katie?
Thank you, Bryant and Willard. On Close-Up this morning, teamwork on the campaign trail. Bill Clinton is running hard for the presidency, but his wife Hillary, an attorney and an advocate for various causes, seems to be running as hard as he is. Here's NBC's political correspondent, Lisa Myers.
Hillary Clinton is breaking new ground. She's less a spouse than a running mate, and she makes it clear she'll have a lot to say in any Clinton administration.
A vote for my husband is a vote for those policies that I'm committed to and that he's committed to and that we intend to make a difference in.
Her assertiveness makes some voters uncomfortable.
I feel that she's the power behind the throne.
I think she's a very aggressive woman, and she's overly ambitious.
But after a similar shaky start in Arkansas, Hillary Clinton became a big hit. There, the Clintons truly are viewed as a team. When he appointed a commission on education reform, she chaired it and helped get the reforms enacted.
I believe we must hold accountable teachers as well.
Her career as a high-octane lawyer in a prestigious Little Rock law firm became the subject of a brief controversy last month.
I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had teas, but what I decided to do was to fulfill my profession, which I entered before my husband was in public life.
She later amended that to note that she was not putting down women who choose to stay home. But the damage remains.
She has no use for us, we have no use for her.
Still, some are more likely to vote for Bill Clinton because of Hillary. Liberals, plus younger and professional women.
I'm glad that she's out there and pushing and that she's aggressive.
I know more about Hillary than I do about him. I don't really follow what he's about.
Earlier this week, Bill Clinton said that if he's elected, he'd want Hillary to have a high-level role in his administration, perhaps even a cabinet position.
She's certainly qualified. She's qualified to do anything, I think.
Even if she's not part of the cabinet, the American people would have to get adjusted.
Just going from Nancy Reagan to Barbara Bush to Hillary Clinton, that's sort of like 50 years of generational change, compressing it all into 3 election cycles, which is just 12 years.
And as Hillary Clinton knows all too well, blazing trails is neither painless nor easy. For today, Lisa Myers, NBC News, New York.
And we're very pleased to have Hillary Clinton here this morning. Good morning, Ms. Clinton.
Good morning.
As we just heard, your husband says he does envision you having a high-level role, an area of responsibility in his administration if he's elected. What kind of role do you envision for yourself?
Well, I'm not interested in any kind of paid position or cabinet position or anything formal or official. What I would like to do is work on the issues that I've been involved in for more than 20 years, primarily children and families issues and public education. And the model, I guess, I have is what I've tried to do in Arkansas. My husband asked me to chair 2 commissions, one on health care access and one on public education. And I worked with terrific people, and we came up with recommendations and drafted legislation, and then I worked on behalf of the passage and then the implementation. That's what I would like to do.
He said he would consider you for a cabinet position.
Well, I'm proud of him, and he's proud of me, and I think that was a very flattering thing to say, but I don't think that was realistic, and you know, he was trying, I think, to convey the level of commitment we both feel to the kind of issues that got us into this campaign and that I'm going to try to work on.
Even if you choose to take a role that's a non-paying role, one that you just described to me, do you think the American people are ready for a first lady who is that involved at a policy-making level in the White House?
Well, I hope so, because I think what I represent is generational change. It's not just about me. And I think that the kind of opportunities that women are coming into their own in this country are really so broad and deep that we should all be willing to take responsibility and to do what we can to further the causes we believe in. And what I find traveling around the country is that there are some people who are concerned because it seems a little bit different from the traditional sense, but what I like about all of the women who've been in the position of being with the president in the White House is that they've all tried to do what was best for themselves, for their families, for the country as they defined it. And that's what I would try to do, and I feel very strongly about these issues, and I would feel negligent if I didn't try to make something happen for the better of the people that I think need it.
As we just heard, some people say some not so flattering things about you. They say you're the power behind the throne, overly ambitious.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to comments such as those?
Well, I regret them because I think they come out of a sense of stereotypes about women's roles, that, you know, a woman who does have opinions and who expresses them is somehow still off base. I hope that's not the case, because you know, there are many, many women in this country who are doing a terrific job fulfilling all of their various responsibilities, and they also think about the issues that affect them and their families. Anyone who knows my husband and knows me knows that we've been having this conversation about what should be done in this country for more than 20 years. He's the one who's elected. He's the one who has to make the final decision. But I care about what he does, and I care about what happens, and I want to participate.
Do you think those kinds of reactions, Ms. Clinton, are the result of good old-fashioned sexism?
Oh, I think there's some of that, because I think it is different. You know, this country is undergoing tremendous change, and certainly what has happened in women's lives over the last generation has been a sea change. And, you know, all of us, we're trying to find our way. Those who are full-time mothers and homemakers, those who are full-time career, and those who are, the majority of us, trying to balance both. And I think that we're all trying to come to grips with it.
You certainly did, however, touch more than a few nerves out on the campaign trail with the now infamous line, I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had teas. I know you have since said that was not meant as a slight to homemakers or women who choose to stay home and work.
That's right.
But it did sound like a put-down.
You know, I'm really sorry about that, because the only person I was trying to put down was Jerry Brown. I wasn't trying to put anybody else down.
Do you regret having said that?
I regret having had it taken out of context and misconstrued, because what I was trying to say is that in response to some of the charges that he had leveled, there was an underlying message to what he had said. In fact, in response to a question about his father's law firm doing business with the state when he was governor, he said, well, I don't control my father. And, you know, it wasn't very subtle. And I was trying to point out that his attitude seemed to be that I should have only confined myself to the ceremonial role of a first lady. And I've enjoyed that role, but I've also enjoyed very much doing the rest of my life. And so I regret that anybody would have thought I was putting any other woman down. Women need to have some sense of solidarity to respect the choices that each of us make, and then to try to put into effect policies that would support those choices.
But you wish you probably wish you hadn't said it in
well,
the
I
first
wish
place.
What I had said before and what I'd said after had all been part of the soundbite, but I'm learning that that's not always what you could expect.
In fact, in a recent article in the Washington Post, you're quoted as saying, I'm a little confused about what the rules are.
That's
what did you
right.
mean by that exactly?
Well, you know, we are charting new terrain, and I think that any of us who is trying to make sense out of our lives has all kinds of different feelings. I mean, my friends who are full-time in the work world often regret not having a family. My friends who are full-time at home get that tinge of anger when somebody says, well, what do you do? And then many of us who are trying at different stages of our lives to balance both roles are afflicted by guilt and insecurity and anxiety about all the things we're trying to do. And I'm really hoping that because of maybe my being out there, and I had never thought of this as really any kind of effect of this campaign, the conversation that needs to go on in this country about what women are trying to do with their lives and how difficult we make it in America for women to make those choices. You know, we don't respect full-time homemakers. We don't give the kind of support. We don't provide the kind of income support families need so that more women could make that choice if they chose to do so. We don't respect the sacrifices and difficulties of women in the workforce. We don't have family leave like many of the countries we compete with. We just need to take a deep breath and say, look, women are trying in many respects to hold down 2 full-time jobs, and we're not making it easy for them to do, and they need to have more support and respect for that. So I hope that maybe some of what I'm going through will get that conversation going and get it resolved.
You're learning a lot, undoubtedly.
Oh, I'm learning a whole lot.
Let's talk about your husband for a minute. He is the front runner, yet at the same time, there remain lingering questions in the minds of some Americans about his character and his trustworthiness.
Right.
Why do you think that's so?
Well, I think it's in part because he burst on the national scene. People didn't know him. He's not from a big state with a lot of media attention so that they could have gotten to have some sense of him over time. The charges and accusations that have been hurled at him have certainly been extraordinary and relentless. But in the region of the country where he is well known, he's done very well. And certainly in our state, which is a small state, where he's been elected 5 times, people have had lots of opportunities to judge his character. And people can disagree with my husband, as they do at home, but until this campaign, no one had ever raised questions about his honesty or his integrity or his character.
Why do you think that hasn't translated nationally, though?
Well, I think it is. I mean, if you look at what happened on Super Tuesday, if you look at what happened in Michigan and Illinois, as people get to know my husband, as they see what kind of a man he is, as they watch what he believes in and what he's committed to, they do become comfortable. It just is a constant process because each primary election is a new electorate. You have to reintroduce yourself. You have to get to know them. And the time is so compressed. I mean, we'll only be in New York in an intense way for 2 weeks.
We're almost out of time, but in closing, what have the two of you learned about presidential politics?
Well, we've learned both positive and negative lessons, I suppose. On the positive side, we've learned a lot about how people in this country want change, and that's what they talk to us about. They give us their suggestions. On the negative side, we've learned how hard it is to talk about what really will matter the day after the election, and instead to avoid getting diverted and have the process kind of twisted around so that at the end of the day, people are still saying, oh, gosh, what's going to happen to my job, or how am I going to educate my children or provide health care? The struggle to try to get the country focused on what will make a difference to our long-term growth and to provide opportunity and bring this country together again, it is hard to do, but we're intent upon trying to do it.
Hillary Clinton, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you. It is 7:19 and we're back in a moment, but first, this is Today on NBC.
If you watch 2 News at 6 a.m.